folks, welcome to Focus on Liberia, another edition of the Hour of Politics. Welcome and welcome to the broadcast. I've been away for some time. We got some breaking news. We do have some breaking news. And so we're going to go into that breaking news right away. Just give me a movement. Let me do an adjustment here. I don't know why my broadcast is not going through to the YouTube version here. My name is Ansony Sieh. Of course, this is Focus on Liberia. Of course, this is the Hour of Politics. In today's edition, the breaking news that we are bringing you is something that is very highly political. And so we will be breaking the news on Cummings hire forensic investigators released their report. They have released their report, right? So, folks, Alexander Cummings, the political leader of the Alternative National Congress, they call themselves alternative. I don't know if they actually are. But that is for another day, but it's also part of today's discussion. Mr. Cummings, in his effort to exonerate himself, in his effort to prove that he did not alter the CPP framework document, Mr. Cummings, in his effort to also disprove that he did not forge anyone's signature, has been in court because he was sued, and he has been doing everything to exonerate himself in the court of law. Why this matter was in court and being adjudicated by the Monrovia City Court, Mr. Cummings wasted no time. Reasons, because Mr. Cummings has some point came to the realization, obviously, that he may not actually get the justice that he's seeking, that he wants. And so he made a move that I know is unprecedented. Why he is an accused in the court of law, he hires two firms, internationally known firms, to carry on an independent forensic investigation. Mr. Cummings was able to hire the wife of former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, who runs an institution that is called the Othniel Strategy LLL. This institution, from what we know, is an international law firm founded in 2011 by Sherry Blair, and it specializes in dispute resolution, and they are also involved in what they term as the prevention of conflicts around the world. Now, in addition to that firm, Mr. Cummings also hired another firm, and this firm, from what we know, is more of a forensic investigative firm. And, these are the two firms that Mr. Cummings has hired to look into the CPP framework document. They have concluded their work, and they have released a report. The other firm actually name is Alanco. It was established in 2002, and we are told it is a leading business intelligence and investigation firm, and is based in the United Kingdom. That is Great Britain, or based in London. So these two institutions, are based in the UK. These are the two firms Mr. Cummings has hired to get an independent forensic investigation, and they have released their report. But here's the thing, folks. When Mr. Cummings made this move, there were political pundits, people who have interest in finding the facts about this particular allegation against Mr. Cummings' reputation. Many of them have said, whoa, Mr. Cummings has made this move and he has hired this firm. He's going to pay them to do a piece of job for him. He's a party to a conflict. He did not seek agreement with the parties to the conflict so that the parties too can use the reports, to see what Mr. Cummings did, why he being accused of, but Mr. Cummings did it anyway. So many people say, if Mr. Cummings is the one paying for this investigation, it's obvious he's going to get what he wants. What Mr. Cummings wants is that he's exonerated from the charges against him. So pretty much it was more and more like expected that a report from two firms being hired by Mr. Cummings will come out with a report that will exonerate Mr. Cummings, and that Mr. Cummings did not do the two major things he's being accused of, that he had made changes to the document and that he has forged the signature of his colleagues. So the report is out, and they are saying Mr. Cummings did not do any of the two major allegations against him, and that the investigative report by the CPP is not reliable. It is not a report that you can rely on, that they did not do the due diligence, and that they came to a conclusion purposefully to indict Mr. Cummings of wrongdoing. So this investigation by Mr. Cummings higher forensic firms are saying Mr. Cummings did not do it. So we all expected that. I actually expected that. What we must know here is this is a political case. It is in a court of law. That does not take away the political nature of it. Now, though political, we have to use the law because we are a country, or should be a country of law, right? Maybe we're not, but we should be. So we will use the law. The laws are there to guide us. The laws are there to be able to allow all of us to work respecting that the laws will keep us at peace, and that the law is also there to identify wrong when one is done. The law is also there to hold individuals accountable who violate the very laws. So talking about the political nature of this case, Benny Nanyure was in a collaboration. He supports Mr. Bwaka. He raised the accusation. He took the matter to court. Mr. Cummings has since denied these allegations. In no time, there was an investigation done by the CPP under Youngblee's chairmanship. That report was done by a committee in her powers at the time, Senator Lawrence. She took her time, informed Mr. Cummings liable of criminally altering the framework document and also forging signatures of the other political parties leaders. That was the finding. So we also know that Youngblee Kaka Lawrence supports Mr. Bwaka. The CPP, people had interest in the CPP at the time, and which is their right to do. And there was this contest as to who, becomes the CPP standard bearer. or candidate. So the fact that these political actors in the CPP were all divided, we had the Musa Ability supporting Mr. Cummings, Mr. Open, Nyambli Kanga Lawrence, DeLong, and we also had Benina Ure supporting Mr. Bwaka. And all these, supporters of the two men in the CPP, of, I don't know, should I say in the CPP still, they wanted their own side or their own choice, to become the head of the CPP. When I say head, who to become the standard bearer of the CPP. So the things they agree on, like consensus, we know it did not work. Nyambli at some point said in October, actually around December of 2021, she was going to see to it that, they would have made a decision through consensus. That did not work. And then the issue of primary became clear at some point that they would have gone to primary. Now, when the primary thing came in the picture, the folks in the United Party were afraid that Mr. Cummings having bigger pockets, deeper pockets, to pull it right, if they, were to go to any primaries, they fear that Mr. Cummings will use his financial means and will be able to win more people on his side and will ultimately become the standard bearer of the CPP. So they objected to that. They brought things like block voting. So what I'm saying here is that we have a coalition that was not clear as to who they needed to be the head and who they also needed to be the second on the ticket. So the competition as to who should be led to people taking extreme sides, and the perfect opportunity for them to have used what a CPP document that they have filed with the National Election Commission. They got certificated. They celebrated their certification. The fair candidates on that particular document. This is the very document they came to us and say was criminally altered and their signatures were forged. But yet they enjoyed the seats that they won on the CPP document. It's always good to bring back the history. And so when the case landed in court, everybody decided to fight for their side. We have a group of Liberians who came together and said they were going to be the alternative, that they were the better side to this corrupt administration headed by Liberia's former footballing star, George Malawia. And these are the individuals who can see eye to eye today. As we speak, the investigative committee hired by Mr. Cummings, that committee, the investigative firms hired by Mr. Cummings, they have released their report and they said Mr. Cummings did not do anything wrong. Now, the interesting things that I'm going to bring forth to you, I read a report. The entire report came in 3 phases. There is one that is just 2 pages that spell out the conclusion of the report. Then they have another version of it that has all the exhibits in it. That is about 185 pages. Then there is another version of the report that is about 44 pages. I read the one with 2 pages. I also read the one with the 44 pages. The one with the 185 pages, I went through it. That is the one with the detail, the WhatsApp chat communication and all that. So let me point out a few things quickly. Number one, on the issue of the signatures, in the report, the one that has the exhibit, it shows the 3 different versions of the CPP framework document. Version 1 and version 2, both dated. The first one dated April 25th, and another one dated May 29th. In that report, there are 2 copies. Right there, you see the chairperson of each political party, they had their sign. Then on the right-hand side of each political party or chairperson, they have attested. Now, that is to say, the CPP constituent members, chairpersons, the way they wrote the framework document, were the one designated to sign the CPP framework document as was written, and that the political leaders needed to only attest to whatever signatures that were to be affixed by the chairpersons of the political parties within the CPP. Now, what is this point important? The point is important because there was a major revelation from the court. That revelation was that Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings did not sign when he should have signed. That is the argument. Now, if you look at the different versions, the way they wrote it, and it's in the report for you to see, for sign, Unity Party chairperson. For place to sign, or ALP chairperson, they only have a test for the political leaders. So for the ANC, Daniel Nathan to have signed, which came to the public to say that he should not have signed, that is one of the things that we have clarity on today based on this report. All right. So Nathan was the one that's supposed to sign, just as the Unity Party chairperson is supposed to sign for the CPP framework document. The leaders or the political leaders, according to the way they wrote their framework document, they were only supposed to attest. Now, whether or not at some point they changed their mind that they should sign instead of attesting, that is another thing that we need to seek clarity on. So all the authors need to tell us, because when I look at the three versions, the original, if there were any original, the second version, and then the third, they still had their sign, party chairman, party chairman, party chairman. They only had the political leaders to attest to the CPP framework document. I think that is key. Now, concerning whether or not the political leaders, Mr. Bwaka and Benin Yuri, confirmed that the CPP framework document was submitted in the WhatsApp chat room. The WhatsApp chat room showed that they acknowledged that the CPP framework document was submitted in the CPP chat room. Why? For them to review it. They all acknowledge. At some point, they'll say, yeah, acknowledge, I'm looking it up. And even prior to its submission, they were informed. So what's been revealed by the report is that the leaders of the collaborating political parties have full knowledge based on their own acknowledgement within the WhatsApp chat room transcript that right now in the public space for us to see. So if they have acknowledged all of this communication leading to the submission of the CPP framework document, then the fact that they participated into the certification process, because somewhere in the transcript, Mr. Cummings said, we are pressed with time here. And if we do not act swiftly to review the CPP framework document, and if we not meet up with the deadline, we will not be able to feed candidates as CPP. And so these leaders, as was required and expected of them, did what they needed to do. And because they did what they needed to do to have seen the CPP document filed, when that was done, they were all there to be part of the ceremony. And they all fed candidates on the CPP framework document, and all their candidates were CPP candidates. So now comes all the politics of it all. We are where we are today because of the disagreement whether Joseph Yaman Boaka should be the head of the ticket and that it should be done through a primary or consensus. That is why we are here. And the Alexander Benedict's Cummings are saying, well, let's go to primary. We believe our guy's going to win. And if he doesn't win, so be it. That is why they are. So these sides have their disagreement. Cummings side is saying, let's go to the primary. We sure we're going to win. But if we don't win, we're abide by the process. The Joseph Boaka side is saying, primary, when we don't have money, that is a huge risk. Now, they are bringing in the fact that with JMB, they have a better chance of beating President Weah. We don't know that for a fact. We do not know that because JMB tried, JMB never won. So to think that JMB is going to win this time, and so he must, the only way they could have done that was through a consensus or a primary. Something that they both, I shouldn't say they both don't agree to. The Cummings said they wanted the primary. It was the Unity Party that objected to the primary and brought in the issue of block voting. So this is where we are today. The Unity Party has been afraid of primaries, and that is a fact. And they need to know that they have refused to go into the primary on the allegation, and they are howling behind the allegation by Mr. Bennett Uri. So let me talk more on this particular report. As I said earlier, the report we knew was going to be something to exonerate Mr. Cummings. What is the significance of this report? What does the report do for Mr. Cummings? Now, I will tell you what the report has done for Mr. Cummings. This report has given Mr. Cummings supporters in the ANC something to celebrate. And I don't see how this is money well spent. Now, those who all along have believed that Mr. Cummings did not do anything wrong are the ones who are celebrating that which they really believe in the first place. They have agreed, they have argued that Mr. Cummings did nothing. Mr. Cummings has said the same thing. I am not sure this report, whether it is true or not, is going to change the minds of those who don't support Mr. Cummings and who believe that Mr. Cummings, has authored the framework document. Now, I'm not naive. How many persons going to take their time to read a 185 pages document? And for what reason were they doing that? Would they be doing that? How many persons going to read it? Thoroughly. Now, I will try to read thoroughly. I did not read the entire thing. I read 144 pages and the one with 2 pages, which is the summary of the conclusion. That is what people are going to read for the most part, and then they will start just putting their own opinions in. That's what they're going to do. So at the end of the day, this report is for Mr. Cummings and his supporters to use as a reason or as their proof that Mr. Cummings did not do anything wrong. The sad part about that is not what this matter that is both political and legal matter. That is not what would be used. People will be looking at what the court going to say at the end of the day. Is the court going to find Mr. Cummings guilty? That would be significant. People will also be looking at their political conclusion concerning this case. And that is the one I have interest in more. The political conclusion here is that Alexander Benedict Cummings joined a political coalition. That coalition took itself to court. And that coalition has handed something to its political opponent, that is the CDC. And the CDC could not be any happier that the CPP that was a threat, the CPP that had everything in terms of momentum and the necessary numbers to have dislodged the CDC out of power, that CPP is impaired politically, that it disappeared in strength. So that is the politics. Mr. Weir is using Selma Serena Cephas very strategically. And they are prosecuting Mr. Cummings in a court of law. And politically, he's also being persecuted. Now, if you read the report, this is what Sherry Bless said. Personally, I find it surprising and disappointing that Liberia's prosecution authority will consider bringing such a weak case to court. You want me to read that again? Let me read that again so I can tell you. This is the woman Mr. Cummings hired to do a piece of job for him. Now, she should be independent. As somebody who is doing a report in a conflict, she should share no side. But if you read the statement, she's giving her personal opinion. Personally, she said, I find it surprising and disappointing that Liberia's prosecution authority will consider bringing such a weak case to court. How did she get to the conclusion that the case is weak? She said the case is weak, that the prosecution authority of Liberia will bring it to court. As a matter of fact, it was not the prosecution authority that carried the matter to court. So I would have loved her to say she found it disappointing that a member of a political collaboration will take one of their own to court. That is what that is disappointing. My understanding is that the woman is a lawyer. Lawyers should be able to entertain cases. I know they have to look at the merits, but she is picking the wrong person here. She's picking the wrong person. The person who took the matter to court is Benny Manayire. The one Cummings knew all along, but then he went into the collaboration with him in the first place. Even if you were not there from the beginning, as we've been told by the ANC folks, when Cummings came, when Ure came in the picture, Mr. Cummings had a decision to make. Because this is a man that is on record for saying we can't be doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. Mr. Clean Hands, Mr. Honest Man, he chose to stay in a collaboration with individuals he knows and had known all along have questionable character. So this statement from this woman, hired and paid very well by Mr. Cummings, shows that she took side. I find it surprising and disappointing that Liberia's prosecution authority will consider bringing such a weak case to court. Who took the matter to court? Ure, the one who went to the court. Where did Ure come from? Ure came from the CPP. And there was a criminal case. And the state that has interest in the upcoming election too, or of course, needed to take this case and use it to their political advantage in the court of law. This is not a weak case. So for her to say this is weak, it's not weak. It is a strong case. This is a case that has the propensity to end Mr. Cummings' ambition of becoming president for Liberia in 2023. So this is big. To call it a weak case, I find it troubling. I don't know where she's looking or how she's looking at it. This is a case against Mr. Cummings' record, his integrity, his character, that he has forged a signature of 3 other political leaders, that the entire constitution of the CPP that we call a framework document was altered. And she thinks that this is weak case, or this is a weak case. And that she thinks that it is the government of Liberia that brings this matter to court. I don't know where her independence is, but she says she's speaking personally. So she's bringing her personal feelings into this thing. To look at this case and call it weak. How can this case be weak when it has to do with someone's integrity, her character, when it has to do with forgery and alteration of a framework document? So it is obvious the report is written and the findings are the way they are. Now, don't get me wrong. I read a lot of things in the report that brought clarity. But we all know this is political. And the report also acknowledged that. Let's read this. Those standing to benefit from these spurious attacks on Mr. Cummings as his political opponent, both in the executive mansion and others vying for presidential office in 2023. That is the report. That is Sherry Blair also speaking politically. Let me read that again. Those standing to benefit from these spurious attacks on Mr. Cummings as his political opponent. Why is she even saying this? You were called to only investigate and report, but to place in your opinion, identifying beneficiaries. I agree that is true, and I've said that all along. But if you are an independent investigator, your role here is to just investigate and release your findings. But to be telling us that the attacks are spurious and the people are going to benefit, and those who are going to benefit are Mr. Cummings' opponents, to be specific, those running for office, and also the executive mansion talking about President We are here. What is this report all about? So I look at this as something to just pacify Mr. Cummings and the ANC folks. And this is something they have known all along. So they needed no money. They've sell it. They have even articulated a much more better than this for nothing report. Mr. Cummings has said this is a witch hunt. The ANC have said the government is after us. And they are doing this so that it will increase Mr. Weah's chances. The ANC, me, all our Liberians who read him politically, even the major opponent of Mr. Cummings, who have been in the CPP, Mr. Boaka, we all have known all along that this will benefit Mr. Cummings' opponent. For Mr. Cummings to spend so much money, for us to be told what we knew all along, what he and his supporters have said to all along. It's it that they are trying to tell us that when it comes from so-called international people, so-called white people, then out of it something is going to change people's opinion? This is why he had to spend all this money? Just for the imperialists to come and tell us, the people who are going to benefit from this thing, that Mr. Cummings' opponent, did we not know this? It has to take several thousands of dollars into the Cummings folks. I'm going to say this to them. Do we have a right to know how much was spent? Or that Mr. Cummings' money? Do you tell people how much money you spend on your clothes? We're talking about transparency. How much money was spent on this report? Just for us to be told what we've known all along, information taken, extracted from the WhatsApp chat room by the prosecuting team. We've seen that. Is that what? We've known all along that this framework document was submitted in the chat room. We knew all along that the other political party leaders have acknowledged. We knew all along. So we needed a report from London to convince us, right? Look, this report does nothing significant other than to just make ANC folks happier. ANC people can go and celebrate. You got a report now from a white man and a white woman. That's it. You are fighting a political battle here in a court of law. You hire so-called forensic investigators and international firms. You pay them several thousands of dollars for a report the voters will not read. Those of us who are in the business are going to find our time to read it. It will create more confusion. You only got a single line. The international report says nothing was changed. Cummings did not do anything wrong. Are we now aware of the $16 billion report that was done by the same so-called international folks? To this day, some people believe that the $16 billion was missing. And we all know that people stole some of the money. The entire amount did not go missing. That thing is still on the government. The report did not save the government, in my opinion. We're talking about popular opinion. It did not save the government. The report on the 25 million. One came from the international community also. It still did not save the Weah administration from people believing that they stole the money, and actually they stole the money. They misapplied most of the funds. Look, folks need to get serious here. And folks, Mr. Blair speaking, our investigation has shown that the original complainant against Mr. Cummings and the CPP so-called investigation are hopeless. I read that. Our investigation has shown that the original complainant against Mr. Cummings and the CPP's so-called investigations are hopeless. So this is an independent investigator. Investigators have done their work, and they are reporting, and at the same time they are using this kind of language, speaking in this manner. We clearly suggest that they have taken side in their investigation. You call it so-called. It is a report. When we say this is so-called, I mean you have some question about it, you have some concern about it. do your work, report, and leave. But they are saying to us, the whole report is hopeless. So the people who have done the report, they are saying the whole thing, the CPP case and everything is complete hopelessness. I agree with them. It's a hopeless situation. I agree with them. It's hopeless. What is the hope in this CPP case that is in court? What is also the hope in this report released by the so-called international investigators? Those of you listening to you, is there any hope in this? There are some people who see hope in it. But their hope is the hope they've had all along. That Mr. Cummings did not do anything, and they didn't need this report. But out of a sudden, they want us to believe that they actually needed this report. The report did not change anything. It did not change their belief. Maybe they were looking for something to confirm their narrative all along, that we did not do anything wrong, or Mr. Cummings did not do anything wrong. Now, am I actually saying Mr. Cummings did some things wrong? Is that what I'm saying? What I'm saying to you is, this is a political matter in a court of law. People will spin it to the political advantage so that they will get the necessary political dividend. Mr. Cummings is not fighting the case politically. Mr. Cummings cannot win this case easily. Either way he turns it. The best way to fight the case is to fight it politically. Going to international firms who are tested for money to write just any kind of report that will please one who pays them is not a political strategy to win this case politically. And I'll be giving you my recommendation, how the Cummings side can fight this thing politically. Do not get deceived that because this thing is in court and that the court going to resolve this issue to the satisfaction of Mr. Cummings. I don't think so. Now, even should the court at the end of the day say, look, we look at all the evidence not sufficient enough, we are throwing this case out, I don't see how it does Mr. Cummings the justice that he wants. I don't see how it redeems him politically. That's what he desperately wants. Because here's the thing. This is a politically motivated case with the government that is, investigating this matter or hearing this case, because the government runs the court. The government has interest. The government will drag this thing. You heard from the Solicitor General. The Solicitor General is clear that he has about 37 witnesses. And he wants to bring them. And very late, he said today, in fact, he said, well, we heard from the former constitutional vice president. I don't know why they have to even say that, right? And now we are bringing in other witnesses. They are trying to, and he went further by saying, after hearing from the key witnesses, maybe the other people now will just bring them, because, and he said, nothing's going to change, it's going to be the same. So if all that's going to be the same, then why are you bringing 36 people? Doesn't that tell you that this man is up to something to benefit the political party that he is a member of, the political party that he's working for, the government that he's working for, President Weah that he's working for? Do you not see that? And while this is going on, Mr. Cummings is running to some kind of international people. The international people, reports that they've written in the past, what have been the impact of those reports in the first place? This Cherie Blair woman, how many reports that she's written in major conflicts around the world? And have those reports changed anything for the better? Do we have that record? Do we have it? They have written a lot of reports that I can confirm, But what I don't know that might be significant is, has any of these reports saved anybody politically? Have any of such reports saved anybody's image politically? I don't think so. But that is what happens when an individual or a political institution is not sophisticated, it's not strategic, and has no political strategy as to how to survive in what is clearly a political case, except that it's in a court of law and the courts are being used as a conduit to achieve a political dividend. The CDC is doing it very well. While Mr. Cummings and his team, they are playing baby. And while Mr. Walker and his team, they are like, we got Cummings. I don't know how it benefits them. I don't know. They too, they are out of ideas. They are visionless. They have nothing. No, there are no alternative. So, folks, that brings me to my final point here. Opposition collaborations in Liberia. One, we have now the CPP that is nowhere. Now it's left with Mr. Cummings and Musa Belete. What they do with it will tell us whether or not Mr. Cummings is going to be president in 2024, because elections will be next year. I don't know how soon they get it from this court. Now, if they leave the courts, I don't know what they're going to do with the CPP. Are there parties out there that have numbers that they can bring to the CPP? If Mr. Cummings is found guilty, will he even be able to contest? If Mr. Cummings is not found guilty, if the case is thrown out, how much time will Mr. Cummings have, along with whoever supporting him, to revive the CPP? And the fact that this CPP is being questioned by the other parties, will the CPP be able to survive and go into the election? So these are some of the questions we need to ask. Mr. Cummings, the fact that the Liberty, the ALP and the Unity Party left, he should just be fighting now to build the CPP, or working now to build the CPP. Now, whether he's doing it undercover, apparently he's doing it. But I think this case is having a toll on him. There's a correct way to end this case right away, but they don't want to do that. And I'm going to be coming to that later on. So here is it. This is a political case in a court of law. I with Mr. Cummings, and I'm going to give them free advice here. This is something that many people also believe. If Mr. Cummings, first of all, need to decide who he wants to be. If Cummings wants to be a politician in Liberia, an African country, involved with politics as we know it to be in Africa, let Mr. Cummings decide and be. Mr. Cummings needs to also decide whether or not he wants to remain a corporate guy, a corporate executive. He has to decide what he wants. And when he makes that decision, let him go with that. If Mr. Cummings' decision is he's going to be carrying himself as a corporate guy with integrity, and at the same time he wants to be a political guy with integrity, then he's going to have problem. He needs to pick one. Decide to be a corporate guy with integrity, or decide to be a politician with integrity. And there's a reason I'm adding the word integrity, because we all should crave for it. We should all do everything to protect it, because it matters. So here's the thing. Donald Trump is a corporate guy. He came to politics When he came to politics, he put aside his corporate credentials. He was not worried about corporate America. He has his own businesses. He came to politics and he played politics. I disagree with everything concerning Trump, but I also know that in politics, you have to find a way you succeed. Trump put together a narrative, rhetorics. Those rhetorics were completely opposite of how a corporate guy would talk. Trump came, he came with political languages that will motivate his base, that will even create a base for him in the first place. And after he's done that, he remained consistent with it. He was not running on his corporate credentials anymore. The corporate credential, his corporate language was not what he was using. He was using political language. He was making political moves. And that's how narrowly he succeeded to becoming president. Now, then we have a guy called Michael Bloomberg. He came to politics, he didn't have any success at all. He threw everything on the wall. It won't stick. Mr. Cummings must decide who he wants to be. Now, Donald Trump is no longer president. He's still a member of corporate America, even though he remains a politician. So Mr. Cummings' decision to become a politician and be one and act one will not take away his corporate resume. But he's acting as though making any sort of decision will take that away. We are told he has money. So if you have money, you can have your own businesses, and he does have businesses, from what I learned. So what is the fear? Is it to be a board member? Look, what I'm saying here is easy. If I were Mr. Cummings, and this is what I'm telling the Cummings things to do, whether or not this is an open, strategy, it will work. Mr. Cummings should refuse to go to court. If and only if he believes and understands and knows that this is a political case and that he has done nothing wrong, and that Serena Cephas is playing him. The Attorney General of Liberia, who is Musadin is asking the man who is prosecuting the case in court, his deputy, he's asking him for evidence that Cephas is using for taking the case to court. He said, my man, where's the evidence that you're using to prosecute this man? Cephas is yet to provide the evidence to his boss, and yet he is in court. Mr. Cummings has been going to the court for some time now, no end in sight. He just complaining about it. But yet he continues to go there anyway when he believes he's done nothing wrong. He believes this is a misdemeanor case. But yes, he continues to go there, and he allows himself to be played over and over by this Serena Cephas guy. What Mr. Cummings needs to do is to refuse to go to court immediately. Do not go to court and be prepared to go to jail. Let them come to your house and arrest you for your refusal to go to jail, and tell the Liberian people you are not going to court because you have gone there enough, the case you have entered, and you know you did not do anything wrong. And those who believe that you have done something wrong, let them convict you or let them take you to jail for what they believe that you have done. Let Mr. Cummings be prepared right now to go to jail. Let him display or exhibit or adapt a non-violent approach to this issue. Let him stretch forward his hands. Let him take the handcuff and let him go to jail. And it should be done through his refusal to go to court. Let Mr. Cummings man up as a politician. Politicians should challenge the law. They should challenge the courts. They should challenge the system when they believe and they know that the system is unfair to them. That is what Dr. Martin Luther King and his supporters did when they were fighting for social justice in America. When you see tyranny, you stand against it, you resist it, you oppose it. You don't succumb to it. That is how you do it. Mr. Cummings must understand that this is the way to go. And that the waste of time in court for a misdemeanor case that is political, that the CDC is using to its advantage, something I must give the CDC credit for. If I were in their position, I would do it. This is politics. This is not about some boys and girls trying to go to a Boy Scout meeting. No, it's not it. They are doing what they can best do. Because if you look at this government is corrupt to the core. This government is headed by thieves who are only after themselves. The only way they can win something they desperately want is to diminish the opposition, to make them look bad. And that's the only way to make the Liberian people to see the oppositions as a bunch of people who are greedy for power, who cannot work together. And this is what the opposition has given the CDC. And you think the CDC must turn it down? And you think I should not tell you the truth, even though the truth hurts? So, folks, the CDC is doing what I would do if I were in their position. Politics is not for boys and girls. Mr. Cummings, let me continue with this. If Mr. Cummings makes that decision to disobey the court, the only thing the court can do is to take him to jail. And he, as much as he believes he did not do anything wrong, that is the best option. So, Mr. Cummings disobeyed the court. What are they going to do? They're going to come and arrest him? Come and arrest me or him. They arrest him, they take him to jail. If he goes to jail, the narrative change. The narrative will be the CDC government of President Weah has arrested a major opposition leader in Liberia and they have taken him to jail. The pressure will get on the CDC government. International people will be calling. ECOWAS will be concerned. Liberia, you again arresting opposition people and putting them in jail? Have you forgotten how it all started that took you to war? Diplomats will be calling. International community will be concerned. And by then, Mr. Cummings will say, I am not leaving from this jail until, according to him, these trumped up charges, this wish on is through the window. If I were Cummings, I will go to jail and remain in prison until this thing is true out. The pressure will be on the government. The pressure will be on Musa Dean to say something. Sieh now, all his grandstanding, going to court, coming to the camera, having fun, doing the CDC bidding. What else will they have? To refuse to do what I'm telling you will mean that the CDC will continue to drag the knee of Cummings in the political space. And as much as people continue to hear that Cummings in court, opposition in court, CPP in court, Bwaka in court, their taste for any of the other political actors disappear. They don't have time. The CPP has already destroyed the trust of the Liberian people. And all the year from the opposition folks who want to replace President Weah is that they are in court. The CDC agenda is clear. They will drag this case to court. They will drag their kid in court until next year. all the way to election time. The best way to end it now, we are in May of 2022, election that next year. If you go to court, the Cummings goes to court now. This will end the case soon. Going to jail will end this case sooner. Getting forensic investigators from Great Britain and paying them millions of dollars will not help Mr. Cummings much. What would be of a significant help is when Mr. Cummings acts as a politician. The last time I checked, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf went to jail. She became president of Liberia. The last time I checked, Charles Taylor went to jail in the United States. He became president of Liberia. The last time I checked, Nelson Mandela of South Africa, he went to jail. He became president of South Africa. Do you want me to keep naming you names of individuals who went to jail and became president of the Republic of Liberia or became president of other countries around the world? So I know the folks in the ANC, they don't like me. And I know the folks in the government, they don't like me. And I also know the folks in the Unity Party, they don't like me. The people that like me and that love me, that the people of Liberia who know that all these leaders must be held accountable by some people and by somebody, and I'm going to do that. If I'm holding the Unity Party accountable, they say I'm ANC. If I'm holding ANC accountable, they say I'm CDC. Either way I go, I'm somebody. I'm not Ansony Sieh. I am not a member of Liberia's most respected network, balanced and fair. They only see me with their political lenses. And that is unfortunate. That is very much unfortunate. So the thing I said to them is that, but go and ask the CDC people if I'm a member. Go and ask them if I even supported Sieh for president. My fault, Sieh. Go and ask the ANC people if I even support them. And that the Unity Party people, they can't even stand me. They want me to give them a pass because they build, few roads in Liberia. Because they wreck our educational system. They said they build few hospitals, so I should give them a pass, as though they use their own money. But when they left us with a Liberia that was in bad shape. We didn't have reliable running water in our country. So back to this case. That is the best option Mr. Cummings has. If there's anything best, that is it. Refuse, challenge, disobey, do not go to court. Let them come and arrest you. Because the goal for the court case is to drag it and drag it and drag it and drag it. The day you refuse to go to court, the day they arrest you, be ready to go to court, to go to jail. And when you come from jail, even if you go to jail, your condition should be that this whole thing is true. It's thrown through the window. That it should be thrown out. And then you will have a peace of mind. Free strategy for the ANC people and Cummings. Maybe he should have come to me to help him instead of going to imperialists, paying them several thousands of dollars. I won't be surprised if they were even paid $1 million to write a report that will not be of help. This report is basically what ANC have been saying all along. This report is basically what we said all along. We knew that these people signed this document. We knew that their senators were never forged in the first place. We knew that. We knew also that the ANC has said there was cosmetic changes, that there were minor changes, that there were no changes at all. We all from the ANC, they also said, well, they changed, there's nothing that was changed to benefit Mr. Cummings. Was that an acknowledgement that there were actually changes? We also knew the lawyer had made some changes. We knew all along that this was a political game by the other side to gain the advantage and diminish Mr. Cummings. We knew all along the CDC had interest in this case because it would make their side to look good. And their side is looking like the lesser of two evil right now. Because if the Liberian people are to pick a side, they want to pick a better side, where they don't see too much confusion. That is the side they might likely pick. So at some point, we're looking at the CPP. This is the CPP now. We have to even put our hands in front of our faces to even look at them. So, folks, your breaking news remains Mr. Cummings' higher investigators have released their report, and they are saying Mr. Cummings has done no wrong. This is something we expected, that they will have written a report to say Mr. Cummings did not do anything wrong. But to just confirm that these people wrote this report to actually make clear that the one for whom they wrote the report was certified could not be even clearer with the words, and then I will close. Number one, according to the head of those two firms, Mistress Blair, our investigation has shown that the original complainant against Mr. Cummings and the CPP so-called investigation are hopeless. So the whole thing is a hopeless situation. All right. So that is what we know. Now, Sherry Blair again. Personally, I find it surprising and disappointing that Liberia's prosecution authority will consider bringing such a weak case to court. So you said a thing weak, they should not have brought it to court. A week, but you took it and took so much money. How you take something that is very weak to go and write an investigative report? You say a week, then you wrote a report. You did it because it benefits your bottom line. You write a report for money. You knew that was weak, but then you wrote a report just for you to get your money. It's the same thing the CDC is doing. Whether or not, if I can agree with you for the sake of argument that it was weak, then the CDC, Sema Serena Sifos, is doing it because it benefits his political bottom line. Just as it was weak and you took it and you wrote a report because it benefits your financial bottom line. But, I disagree with you. It's not weak. It is strong against Mr. Cummings to accuse this man, who we did not hear any terrible news about throughout his lifetime, that he authored document, that he forged signatures. That was not weak. That was a strong allegation. For you to term it as weak, I don't know how you look at things. But again, these are the people Mr. Cummings will run to for answers when they don't have answers for him. And finally, those tending to benefit from these spurious attacks on Mr. Cummings and, his political opponents, both in the executive mansion and others vying for presidential office in 2023. Now, what this statement says is they want to say, well, the reason why they're doing this thing here, they want to benefit, because when they attack Mr. Cummings with something that has the propensity, to bring people to the point where they can question Mr. Cummings, then it benefits the executive mansion, which is President Weah, and then it benefits the other people vying for office in Liberia. That is Mr. Sieh, Mr. Joseph Yimambwaka. That is true. That is true. But my point with that is that all you got to say? Did we not know this all along? Did we not know this all along? And you, as an independent investigator, you the one now have to more like take a side and say, hey, this is why they are doing this. Is that why Mr. Cummings pay all this money for the woman to come and tell us we are going to benefit, Bwaka going to benefit when they attack him and malign him and accuse him and find him guilty of altering framework document? Is that why Mr. Cummings paid this woman and these two firms all this money? So the report is out now. Will that end the case? Will this report even be admitted in the court of law to be used as an evidence that Mr. Cummings did nothing wrong? Will it be used? Mr. Cummings only wants to use this to show it to his friends in the corporate war that he did nothing, and for his supporters to use it as a talking point that he did nothing. The only thing they're going to add there is, Cherie Blair from Great Britain, they investigated. Cummings did nothing wrong. Well, you've been saying it now. So just the name Cherie Blair, we're going to do it. Is that a silver bullet? And you're going to spend all that money? I would have loved for Mr. Cummings to give that money to those who have been making the case for him. Give them more money. Let them go to more media platforms. Let them go to all the community radio stations and go to all the districts and say it. It would have been a little more effective, because this report that is written in standard and advanced English, majority of the voters will not even have access to read it. If it's going to change anything, his supporters must go and explain it. And what is in the report is not what they have been saying all along. It's not different from it. So maybe you should have used the resources wisely. You have given that resources to his supporters and surrogates for them to go to all the media platforms, put it in simple Liberian English, and tell the Liberian people what this government is up to and what his opponent, Mr. Bwaka, his opponent, Benny Nanyure, and the others who support Mr. Bwaka have been up to. That would have been better to have wasted our time on this just for us to be told what we knew all along, just for ANCs to celebrate the things they've been saying. They don't even value their own saying. They're looking for some kind of report from a white person, and they can't even challenge the Cummings. Why are you doing this? Well, what's the point of this? This is Liberia. This is a political matter in Liberia. And you go for a British report. This is a British report. We're going to use British report now in Liberian court. Did we even ask for it? Have Liberia asked for an independent report? Could Mr. Cummings have prayed for an independent forensic report in a court that the court will entertain and use? That would have been a much better way to do it. But to take upon himself and do it for himself and his supporters and thinking that it's going to help politically, I doubt it 100%. It's not going to change the narrative at all, especially with those who believe all along that Mr. Cummings has done what he's been accused of. Liberians are not going to read this report in their numbers, especially the voters. They're going to be listening to folks like us. They're going to be listening to the political actors. They're going to be listening to radio stations. They're going to be reading Liberian newspapers. And the Liberian newspaper, pretty much Liberian people read it. How many Liberians actually read? How many Liberians are even online to listen? This is a matter that you can take to the Liberian people. But again, folks, I have to leave it there. I gave you my analysis. and I injected my own opinion. I am a citizen of Liberia. I believe and subscribe to dual citizenship. I think I'm enjoying that right now, and many of you, enjoying that too. We have to fight for this country called Liberia. The people who are supporting politicians, they are fighting their fight. And those of us who have chosen not to support politicians for the sole purpose of holding them accountable and trying to do critique, we will continue to do so. Let everybody play their part. Play your part as a supporter, especially for those who are sycophantic. Do your part. For those of us, you think our analysis, we hate others, we are playing our part. We have no issues with you. That's the way to go. The truth will always be the truth. Liberia will remain Liberia. I'm Ansony Sieh. I brought you another controversial analysis of the Alice Cummings Higher International Forensic Reports, authored by imperialists and released for Liberians to read. It is filled with nearly everything we know all along. It's a waste of time and waste of money. It changes nothing, and it only adds to the noise, the confusion, and it takes Mr. Cummings and the ANC nowhere. I'm not sure it even pleases them at all. But that is the story. So, folks, I have to leave it there, and I have to take leave of you. Until I see you again, I made a recommendation to Mr. Cummings. And if any other person were in Mr. Cummings' shoe, I would make the same recommendation. Or maybe just as I gave a recommendation to Mr. Cummings, let me close with a recommendation to the other side. Number one, the government of Liberia. We know what you are up to. I understand it is a political strategy that works. I don't fault you for it. But that does not make it right. To be going after a Liberian because, like in the words of Seaman Serena Cephas, he's like a Jew that was brought forth by his own people. And so you're going to nail him politically in a coffin. Know this and know this well. Life is a cycle. It goes around. It stops at a certain point with somebody. It is your time now. And you think it benefits you to prosecute another for political reasons. It works. I agree it works. I agree it benefits you. I'm talking about you, the CDC. And that's your only option that you have. And I know that. Because if it is about the issues, you stand no chance. If it is about integrity and transparency, you stand no chance. Your government is corrupt. We're talking about road funds being stolen. You have no credibility as a government. You have reduced our people to suffering at an all-time level. And so the only thing you have right now is to project the ones that want to replace you as greedy, non-trustworthy, problematic, Confucianists, that they are fighting. What a good strategy. But what a disservice when you should be focusing on helping our people, doing the right thing. You are spending all your time to prosecute a single case when rape cases don't get to see the light of day. when cases about mysterious deaths don't see the light of day, when you have no appetite for Liberians who have been killed under mysterious circumstances to be investigated, when you have zero appetite, you have all the appetite and the time and the interest in a political case because it benefits you. You pass a budget that the entire Liberian National Police Force gets less money than a security force called EPS that protects the president. Shameful. Wickedness. This is the author of the day in this government. 3 missing boys. You have no interest. The suspect, Mose, is a free man. He's not going to court weekly for the boys. And yet, you go after your political opponent because you know it works. What a shame. What a disservice. As we speak, the president of Liberia is yet to utter a war on the road fund that has been stolen. We're talking about 24 million plus in question. We don't know where that money is right now. This president is yet to speak. This solicitor general is yet to talk about it. The boss of the National Election Commission was indicted by the LACC. That case went to court. It flew out of main technicality on legal ground. She is a free woman and she stayed in charge of our election. What a shame. And yet, the airport, no light. You're not putting in your time and your effort. And this is all you do because it works. It benefits you politically. Life is a cycle. Keep on. Keep going. And then to Unity Party. The ones who hate me most. The ones who can't stand me. And they're thinking that I'm going to stop because they brand me as sedition, as ANC person. And they think I'm going to stop. Unity Party is a complete letdown. The party is disorganized. Some of the Unity Party actors, as we speak, are on government payroll. Actors within the government paying them money for them to survive. They was in power 12 years ago. They can't even sustain and maintain their party headquarters. They got evicted, not one time but several times. They have a political leader. In fact, the budgeting we're talking about, Unity Party introduced this budget, incidental allowance, daily traveling subsistence allowance, domestic travel subsistence allowance, foreign travel daily subsistence allowance. Unity Party introduced this thing to us. Unity Party were paying individuals $15,000 to $16,000, money that should have been used to conduct a mass computer literacy program in Liberia. Unity Party of all left our country. There was not a massive computer literacy program where they could buy computer for all of our high schools, train people to go into the schools to train young people how to operate computers. Unity Party, 12 years. On Buaka and Ellen, they did not do that. They want me with my sophistication to celebrate them for an airport that was not built by them. We were given money by foreigners, and they want me to celebrate them for that. They want me to celebrate them because they got $257 million grant from a compact. I should celebrate them because foreigners gave us money. They want me to celebrate them because they said they raised the budget from 80 million to 500 million. We should be talking about 500 millions now. You spent 12 years and all you do was to raise budget from 80 to 500 millions, and you call that an achievement? Are you little-minded? I must celebrate 500 million. What can 500 million even do for just one sector in our country? One sector of our country. 500 million is not even enough for the educational system in our country. And you want me to celebrate that? The Unity Party is in chaos. Its leaders are incompetent. Its strategists don't have no strategy. They are visionless. They are only waiting to come by and enjoy government again. They were given the best opportunity. They got significant funding. It's like we have given them money for collard greens. They go dry red moment for our people and they want me to celebrate them. I don't know how they think. I don't think like you. And we'll be here, we'll fight for this country. Because we know how much money you people stole. Bank road, no car. And you want me to celebrate you. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf brought all her children into government. One of them today has millions of dollars in his account in Liberia. She put her neck on the chopping board. She admitted that she couldn't win the war on corruption. And you want me to celebrate you? Because you say you built what? College in Bond County? What is in that college anyway? What is the standard? Do we even have electricity? You could not even provide internet. You could not bear our internet gray in our country. 12 years. And you want me to celebrate you? Because your name is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Because you have a master's degree that benefits nobody other than yourself. And how does it benefit you? By occupying a government. According to Mr. Bwaka, instead of you people focusing on implementation, you were doing PowerPoint presentation all along. Mr. Bwaka could not be more eloquent when he said they squander a lot of opportunities. And so that is the reason Liberians should be able to celebrate you, because you squander opportunity, because you were just doing PowerPoint presentation. These are Bwaka's words, not mine. And that qualifies you to come back to power. To be celebrated again. Some of us are here. We will say our own the way we see it. And I believe our way is the right way. You can't lower the standard. Do you know how many persons are in trouble today? Unity Party left our country. The future of this country is at stake. And they want us to put all the blames on this government because this government is incompetent. Yes, I agree. This is one of the worst government ever. But what did you do? What is the foundation that the Unity Party lay for education in Liberia? At least if you have not done anything, you should have laid an educational foundation. You attempted to privatize our schools and brought in another imperialist. And they started a school. Our sisters were raped and infested with HIVs. Unity Party, you too want to tell me that you did so much for our country? Some of you are twisted in your thinking. Not all of you, but some of you. So, folks, I will leave it. The search for leadership, I will not compromise it. I will not trust anybody just because they say I should trust them. I will not take anybody by their words. They must all be questioned. If we put them on their heels that we are looking, that we don't trust them, and they need to earn their respect with their deeds, then they will get it right. But if we all become sycophantic, and we all start to celebrate little mini projects here and there. What is the difference when Georgia Bay, a one-man road in Doe community, and a statue is built? You use our country money. You build a little road here and there. And you think that is enough? We are 100 years behind our friends. And the only thing we should celebrate is a Unity Party because it builds a ministerial complex with the country's money. Nonsense. That brings me to Tiawan Gonglo. Tiawan Gonglo must want this thing just as others to want it. And if you want it, you must work. You must connect. You shouldn't be in the past. Be about the future. You either in or you out. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it. You either work with the right people or cry your own cry and be left at the weather side. Tiawan, There is an opening here. It's yours to take. It's yours to not take. The progressive, this is an opportunity. I believe you have somebody with good character. If you are not excited, no one will be excited for you. You have to. You have to sit down. You have to think it through. We heard Unity Party is coming with a coalition called Democratic Alliance of Liberia. Now they jump from CUP, Coalition of Unity Party, to DAL, Democratic Alliance of Liberia. Where are the parties going to come from to make this DAL? It says headed by, what's his name? Professor Alari Togba. Liberia is in trouble. Our leaders are visionists. Our visions don't come with plans. They want to make noise like boys and girls playing NAFO on the football field. They need to get it together. Thank you for watching. I came today to not please anybody. I came today to fight for Liberia the way I know it. I hope I was able to do it. And I will not apologize. I know I don't always get it right. I will not always get it right. But one thing I promise, I will speak on it the way I see it, and I will speak my mind boldly and fearlessly. No matter who it pisses off, that is my own. Say your own and I will respect it. Until I see you again, my name is Ansony Sieh. I just came from a vacation, and I thought to come in to let you know I'm back. This fight continues. Next year is the election, and the boys are dancing kakaleka, calling themselves men and women who want to stand up for the country. We will remind them that they may be men in their ages, they may be women in their ages, but in their behavior, in their seriousness, they are boys and girls playing NAFO. The song says we are all Liberians. That song is taking us home. That song is taking us home, and is taking us home. Until I see you again, enjoy the song that says, we are all Liberians, including me. I am one too, just like you all are. Bye-bye, folks.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.